Welcome back to another episode, another show, another broadcast of Let's Look at This. Good to be back on the show today. It's Friday evening, weather is a little settled. Trying to work through this whole aspect of what they call that we still in that hole, Minister P, that pandemic hole. It seems like we can't get out of that.
Yeah. Seems like things are easing up though.
Yeah, just a little bit, but you ain't trying to dump some other stuff on us. But you would think with all the technology that exists out there, things will be a little bit better. But
yeah, most definitely.
Hopefully some bright mind come into play and be able to do away with this without giving you the 1-2 jab, as they call it. So, but hey, I think that's what drives us to keep going every day, because we all have the mindset and possibly the opportunity to be able to maybe come up with something to that extent. But, we carry on, we keep moving. And that's what makes us stronger, and being able to utilize the mind. But again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Let's Look at This, where we say the things that just help dispel inferiority, help and regain confidence in our authority, where we open up all eyes wide shut, give it to you in the raw, uncut, unfiltered. For mental health, for Black wealth, dismantle indoctrination by having all the hard conversations on this platform. Sometimes it may dispute, except the ones you shouldn't refute. We keep this last statement, and that's the must. A must. We must continue to buy Black. Even if it hurts you in the business, you keep buying until they get it right. You even complain, hey, I'm gonna keep coming until you get this right, because you need to be here. We need to revert from our community, our neighborhoods, as they should say, as they call it, the hood. Get away from that terminology and get into calling it a real community. That's what a community is. A community is having everything wrapped up in it that you own and control, not just being there in the space and just calling it the hood or the neighborhood, because a neighborhood is somebody who's just visiting. So community, people, community.
That's it. And that's what I like. Change your words and change your mindset. Change your mindset, you can change your environment. I just want to give a shout out to all of my all of our listeners and supporters and viewers, friends, brothers and sisters. This is Minister P, and we're here all the way live.
Oh yeah. Yes, welcome, friends who's our audience, ones who are out there listening or starting to come aboard to listen. Reach you, giving you a shout out, just saying good day, good evening, happy Friday. Get right into it. I shouldn't have to call out the code, Mr. P, but we're gonna call it out. Code of ethics. 1, speak politely. 2, pay fairly with what you buy. 3, return everything you borrow. 4, pay Anything you damage. 5, do not hit or swear at people. 6, do not take liberties with women. 7, do not damage property or crops of the poor and oppressed masses. 8, you were ever to have to take captive, do not ill treat the individual. And, we want to add a 9, as we already said, people to continue to get your dollars back in to where you would consider to be a community. Because clearly in that economic state, our dollar, and I think about it all the time, every time I have to spend a dollar outside of my community. I said my community dollars should be bouncing 8 to 10 times. And I keep that 8 to 10 times just rolling through my head. And we need to, adhere to that, because other communities that they see it in other cultural aspects that doesn't look like you do it themselves. But then they want to harp on you. Oh, that you're being, and they have the nerve to call us racist. And they not even looked at the term, Minister P, and getting the right dictionary to look up the word race and racism. It has nothing to do with hating anyone. Nothing.
They need to check it out.
It's nothing to do with hating anyone, Minister P, calling out the word racism. Racism in itself, that's 2 words. If anybody didn't recognize that, if they had any care to look in their dictionary. So if I got a system, if I'm gonna hate you, then that means I have a system of hate. And if I'm an oppressed person, how can I hate you and I'm being oppressed? The hatred only become out of what? Reaction. Right? So, education, people, that's the part of education that we need to be adhered to. Because as I see it, there's no person that considered to call themselves Black and have known themselves to be that cannot be a racist, because you don't have the power to be as such. And you can be a bigot, if they want to call you that, or a prejudiced person. But you can't be a racist because you don't have a system in place of controlling and owning anything. So, just a little education piece right there, Minister P, coming from me. Step in, Minister P, with your code of ethics.
Yes, listen, these code of ethics and code of moral principles, we're giving these out because they govern our behavior, our conduct one to another. And so we have to have a standard for that. So the first one standard is have integrity. Integrity, what's that? Doing what's right when people are around and when nobody's around, always doing what's right. A writer once wrote, it's always good to be good always. That writer was Minister P, but still. Code of ethic number 2 is unity. We have to, listen, we're in this thing together. We have to have unity. Unity, that's us all together. Number 3, objectivity. You got to have a vision. You got to know where you're going to. It's always good to know where you're coming from, but where you're going to. Number 4, confidentiality. Doggone it, look, what I say to you should stay with you. What you say to me should stay with me. Stop all the gossip. TMZ, it wouldn't be no TMZ if it wasn't for gossip. And the last one is growth. We must grow from boys to men, from girls to women. And that's how this society rotates. And that's how we can build our community. That was it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you said it right. We have to do that, start there. And once we can achieve that, and even though we in the ministry, we tug a war back and forth between this economics and education. And that right there, what we just displayed was the education part. Not going to some school, CPS or Harvard or Yale. That's no. This is getting deep rooted into your community, people, to be able to adhere to what is being said to somebody who's been down that road and going to lead you to that extent, to that way you can be that opposed leader. We all are leaders, but we have to be at some point of direction from someone to lead us. So we just can't depicting somebody jumping, I'm a leader. Man, okay, where are you leading us to? What are we doing? How are we following? What is our ultimate goal here? Because again, people, we haven't been placed on what they call planet Earth by accident. There's reasons behind us walking the face of the earth. There's reasons for how we look. So there's a reason how we look scientifically, and they want to get in depth into that and how you look. And you have a dominant aspect of what they would call a color. There's a reason that you walk in this earth, not by accident. Doesn't mean that you have to mistreat anyone because of your dominancy in color. It just means that you are more unique than anyone else. And we are to act as such. You are to act as such. If you are that, you're supposed to act as such. We've been given all these cliche terms and these weakened terms that has really bogged us into a box and locked us in place for so many years. This thing is, when do we come up out of that? When do we get away from really channeling what the reasoning that we are here? That way, for the point of time you're being here, once you've left here, what's left behind? And that brings us into our topic. How will we be defined in history? Ministry, I know for myself, as me being defined in history, I want there to be some point of legacy to where my name, and not for popularity purposes, want to be lifting me up as he was the greatest of all time. And that can relate to a Muhammad Ali, but Muhammad Ali, greatest at all time in boxing, but he still left behind a deeper legacy where he was able to speak to anyone and give them some words, if you want to call it encouragement, some words of thriving to move forward in society, to try to further society to do better. And that's why he became such a great of all time person, because he was great in his sport. And then he became greater out of the sport. So in that aspect of itself is like, where do we see ourselves? Where do I see Dr. K? Where do I see, what did Dr. K see himself once the time of walking this earth is over? What does my defined history looks like? Because as you know, well as I know, Minister P, we always bring up one individual that everybody wants to speak on, and they want to call his name, but that's already written in history. Jesus already, if that would be the case, Jesus already walked the earth. So now the point of the work that you have to do, what are you doing while you're here walking the earth? What is your, as we went into another show, Ministry, what is your purpose? Going right into, how do you define yourself in history? What is going to define you in history? What are you going to leave behind that's going to take place, that's going to have an effect on someone else's life while you're here? Because we're here now, are we not? Ministry, we're here talking, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Here, live in a living color. So the point is, how do we gain to come into that, say, or to me on the average, who thinks about that? How am I going to define history of myself? So when I'm gone, there is a point to where somebody can grab a point of legacy, something I said that helped them move them forward in society. Because as we see it now, we've been placed in, to me, I look at it, Minister P, as if I study, we're deadlocked. We just mentioned this COVID-19, that's a defined in history. We go 20 years out, we can look back on this if we are still here. You look back on this self, man, remember that 20 years ago? Oh, bad is bad. But then what was the defining point during that point of history? Out of that is to say, well, man, Minister P created something that was able to deal with that. Or he did this that helped move around that. Or he did this to help in that time in history. Dr. K did this to help define or put us in position to where we're in now, that where we're able to grab that and move forward in history. Because of course, history rewards all research. You do the research. That's where you get your history from. It goes hand in hand. You go back and forth with it, because without it, gives you nothing. What we did yesterday depends on what we're doing today. There was a history yesterday. Can I pick up the piece of what I did yesterday? Sure, if I have the memory of it. But where are we moving to define yourself? How are you moving to define yourself in history? Because surely somebody is paying attention to your movement. So with that movement, what are you doing to define yourself in history? Sometimes this subject here can be hard for people to understand, because they use cliche words. You know, we wearing this word out, Mr. P. At least I have this cliche thing. You know, I'm going across and I heard this, and I don't knock her for that, but God got me. Okay, who God don't have? Is that just all? It's like, okay, that's all you have to say. You have no other input, because somebody surely wants to hear more than just that, because a million people can say that.
But there are those that can't say that. So
True.
That's part of her history, and I can't speak to that.
No, I can't.
What she meant to that. But I do know if she's a Christian, God got her. That's for sure. But so let's get into this subject of how will we be defined in history. I'm gonna go with how Minister P is gonna be defined, because Dr. K, you know me. Listen, I am the GOAT. I am the greatest of all time. I am. I'm sitting here on your show. Let's look at this. And I'm saying I am the greatest of all time. So let me qualify that.
Mhm.
I am the greatest Minister P of all time, because that's all I can be is myself. And I'm going to be the greatest self version of myself of all time that I am. There will be no other Minister P greater than me, because I am uniquely made. There's only one of me, like there's only one of you. And so we must become the greatest of all times of ourselves, the greatest version. And how do we do that? It's a lifelong process, and we keep going until we leave this precious land and go to the place that God has for us. So until then, it's a daily learning process. We're getting better and better and better. And see, the thing is, Dr. K, you said it already. We're here to leave footprints. This ain't no recreation.
Right.
This has not been 64 years of recreation and recess and playground. This has been theory work. This has been class work. This has been street work. All of that. And so we are here to build up. Our thing here is our history. How will we be defined in history? Well, I'm going to be defined as those that know me and those that hear us speak from this show and then up in person. We're going to be the ones that influences you to be the best that you can be. We're going to be the leaders that's going to make you your best GOAT. You're going to be the best person that you're going to be. See, we all have something, Dr. K, called AIM. AIM. Assignments involving me. That means aim. I have an aim in life. I have an assignment involving me. And I want all of our listeners, our brothers and sisters, to understand this. Each and every one of you have an aim in life. You can say it. I have an assignment involving me. And so when you're on point with your assignment, like you learned yours early in life, Dr. K, there are some that are still trying to find it, and then there's some that find out later in life. But once we connect to our aim in life, man, there it is. That's our footprint. Then we start edifying, empowering, and encouraging each and every person we come in contact with. That's why you created this show.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That is true. This will at some point define, and if it already has been defining,
it is
me in history, because later down the road, somebody will gravitate to this, and hopefully to that extent, the words that we are speaking on this platform will be adhered to, and then we won't have to mainly have to say that we supposed to have a code of ethics, because it would already be there. Again, as we stated before, there's nothing than turning off all of this electronical equipment to shut down all of this and then turning it back on, right? That's a code. It's either going to be on or off. There's no, well, turn it to the right or turn it to the left. It's going to be either on or off. Simple as that. That's a code. That's a code that you just simply follow. So, and the light switch knows what it has to do. It's just the action of somebody, making the movement to cut it on and off. But the light switch doesn't deviate from what it has to do. It said, well, you're either going to turn me on or off. So that's how we have to be. We have to be just like a light switch, like a water faucet. Either going to be on or off. Going to be hot or cold. It's just that simple, people. We don't have to make this no complicated calculus problem or some scientific mathematical equation. It's mainly that simple. And I'm hoping that in this point in history that we get it right. That way we're able to define and leave behind a legacy to reference to so many people that has come before us. We can run off many of names. You can pay homage to many of the ones who paved the way before us and have defined themselves in history. And it's been so many. We had so many, whether they were perished by, some unfortunate accident, or they died of unfortunate unseen health issue, anything to that extent, they still left they defined themselves in history. They had a legacy that they put in place to where somebody would say, well, whether or not that we picked that ball up and kept carrying it, Minister P, it's it's still there, because if it wasn't still there, we wouldn't know of these people that had defined themselves in history. It's just whether or not that we see the ball laying there. The point is will anybody pick it up and keep it moving?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They did it by hard work. It's all about hard work. So you can have history. You can have a positive history, or you can have a negative history. So you can have a personal history or a people history, a group of people history, like the past leaders. But speaking on our personal history, how will we be defined? All of our listeners, our brothers and sisters, our supporters, our viewers, they need to understand. Don't look no further than your own household right now. Just think of how will your family define you. I'm talking to the men right now. Watch this. To all the men, the head of the household, how will your family define you? We want to leave, like Dr. K has been saying, we want to leave a legacy of leadership that inspires someone to aspire to be their best. Now I'm talking to the women. What is your role there? How are you leading in your own family? See, well, we need to answer those questions. Women, are you parenting correctly? Are you supporting your husband? Are you leaving a legacy of support so that you can aspire others? That's the family history right there.
Yeah, and that's the whole purpose. How will your family see you if you have one? If you're a part of one, how would they see you? It's we can go on down the road and be about, at least I'm sure you can, in our history of family members that left a legacy, whether it was, like you say, negative or positive. It still is like, has the positive ever outweighed the negative, is how I would perceive it. Not saying that everything's going to be a positive, but it still has to be, especially the type of society that we are in. We have to have more positive than negative, even though they say some negative may turn into some positive. But that's yet to be seen at some point, because we have some things that's negatively bad that turns into a positive, but it becomes that hard work to get to that point that
But
makes
you
it
can learn from it.
right, that you learn from the negative. And I mean, learning from the negative is seeing the negative.
Yep, that's it.
That's how you learn. You say, well, you should in any case. Let's just say that you should see the negative and be able to learn from it. Because if you're not learning from the negative, and you just say, well, hey, I'm gonna just be the same way.
Yeah, ain't no growth.
None. No growth at all. So and that really right there can define you for the most part. And it can leave a negative mark. They talk about that cycle in the speak, right? It's that you hear the curse. Oh, it's a curse. It's the same old cycle. It's the same, you hear that talk of people saying, our people mainly saying that. And it's like, okay, when do we stop saying that? And when do we say, well, no, there was a positive incident that happened here, and we're going to thrive on this positive situation. We're going to move with that. Even though I had that negative, we're going to take that as a model to learn from. Because that's going to make a positive now. Even though that was left a negative mark on us, we learn from it, and we're thriving. We got our motivation now. We got our wheels in motion now. We're able to thrive and move forward from this negative thing that happened. So I at myself, and this be the defining in history is of course is if you have a family, it's going to start with that family process. Even though in family, you're not, nobody's perfect. Let's just be in agreement on that. You try to be as perfect as you can, but you're not gonna. I thought about that ministry. I said, well, due to the point of defining myself in history, how will my family? How could they grade me if they had to put a grade on me right now? How would they grade me if we were going to use a school scale of grade? What type of grade would I get? Just say over the last 10 years from my family. And I say I've never done everything all perfect. I tried to be as perfect as I could, but they surely would have some positive points that they would display about me, if there would be. And I would want them to display some of the negative, if possible. I mean, you don't want to air out dirty laundry.
If you could grow from it.
Right, if you can grow from it.
Listen, negative criticism is good if you can grow from it. But if it's negative just for the sake of being negative, because it's hate, now you erase that. You don't even listen to that.
Right.
But negative to help you grow personally is exactly it. And so that's the same thing with me, Dr. K, because listen, I am the head of my household.
Right.
So I get a grade and I get a label. What am I being labeled as in my own household? Well, I'm sure one of the things, because I try to cultivate this culture of encouragement. So I am an encourager. I know my family would say that about me. I am an empowerer. I try to empower them. So these are things that we need to get across, because right now we're still focused on just the household. And I'm glad we're right here for a moment before we go into the general of our Black history. But our history is right here. All of our listeners, I want you all to understand what Dr. K is bringing to you right now. He's talking about our household right now, how we can define ourselves as leaders. The man as a leader, the woman as a leader in their household, bringing up their children. And what are you doing? Well, I am an encourager. I am encouraging my family to find out what it is that they can do. I'm empowering them with knowledge, and I'm edifying them. I'm building them up to be the GOAT, the best the greatest of all time, the greatest version that they can be.
Yeah.
I want my daughters to be the greatest version of them that they can be. I want them to be the GOAT. Just that simple. My wife, I want her to be the GOAT, the greatest of all time.
Now it's funny, Minister, that we talk about the greatest of all time, right? And when you think of that term, what's the first thing that come to mind if somebody was just approached off the street?
Okay, it would be Minister P. But
Well,
other than that, it would be
other than that,
Muhammad Ali. It would be
you're right.
Muhammad
So
Ali.
right. So overall, other than you, and that's my thing. To me, we have to get out of that mindset, right? We have to be
Come
say,
on.
hey,
Come
Minister
on.
P, Dr.
Come
K, I'm the greatest of all time, and not this. Well, I was the greatest of all time because I was doing people on the court, or I was
Yeah.
doing people on the football field, or I
Yeah.
was doing people in the ring. Or Jordan, Muhammad Ali. Oh man, they great. That's the
Ali,
GOAT.
yeah.
Then behind him came Kobe, and then behind him came LeBron. We got to get out of that mindset, because then that's defining our mindset in history now, because we're only able to relate to somebody who poured out sweat on dribbling the ball, or running the ball, or boxing, or beating each other up. We have to get out of that, even though that we thrive in it, and we entertain ourselves with that, and we like it to see that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we can't let that be our defining moment to say, well, soon somebody asks me that GOAT, who is that? And then the first thing come out of your mouth is, oh, it's Michael Jordan.
Right. Now you brought up a good point. That can't be the foundation of our culture. It is an aspect of our culture, because, like you said, we love entertainment. So that's singing, all of that, acting, everything. But that's just an aspect. That's not the foundation.
Right.
Of our culture.
Right.
That's where we become the greatest of all time, when we produce a footprint that creates the foundation of our culture, which is
and we have to change that, because I mean, this if we took a poll right now and gauge the mindset of people, and I guarantee you, Miss B, we went and got 20 people, just random folks, and asked them, well, who's the GOAT? Just ask them that simple question. Didn't even define anything of reference to family, themselves. They said, well, who's the GOAT? And I guarantee you, almost half of all would say whatever, even if they didn't like sports, they'd be able to utter someone in the sports arena or in the point of entertainment. Some form of entertainment will come out their mouth. And to me, we have to kind of remove ourselves from that, because if we don't, that becomes a mindset now. And you'll forget about self. You'll totally forget about self and what you're supposed to be doing to be the GOAT.
Your aim.
Your aim. You'll forget the aim.
A mission involving me. Assignment involving me.
Yeah. You'll forget the aim for yourself. You'll totally wipe it out, because I've been trained to say, oh, well, Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali.
And that's what's being drilled, because we're forgetting about the family structure.
That's it.
We're forgetting about the family structure, and that's been the main problem that we've had in our society, which leads us to how we define in ourselves. Because wholeheartedly, we don't truly, if you had to look at a ministry and really get a percentage on it, we really don't have a cohesive family structure anymore. It's been torn apart, and we're playing tug of war with it, and the aspect of that other person or other entity on the other side, there is almost like they're winning to a certain extent. Now, between me and you, we may say, oh, well, our family structure is okay. Maybe it could be better, could be worse, right? We can go back and forth with that, but then we look outside and say, wow.
There are many that are not, right?
Yeah. And it doesn't, that aspect is that's the bad that's outweighing the good there, because it's being displayed too much. So now that whole defining yourself in history, it leads right to, and I'm going to do that, Minister P. Definitely going to do that. I came before the topic came before the actual getting into the research part of it, but I'm going to do the research and just ask somebody, say, hey, who was the GOAT to you? You may get some to say, well, my dad or my mom. You may get a few.
That'd be great. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be. But for the most part, I guarantee it, you would get almost 90% that would say a sports figure or somebody that's acting or somebody in a point of comedy. They may say that, or they'll say, well, can you be more specific on your asking a question?
What's missing? The education. Got to be re-educated.
We have to be re-educated. So, ladies and gentlemen, definitely ponder on that and think of that while we go to break. And we'll return briefly and we'll get back into it and get some more hard questions in there, Minister P. If you got any on deck for the last half hour of our show. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of some of the issues that we got. So bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back.